Hi everyone, welcome to a Chandler's channel. I'm Tracy and I'm your host, and this is your weekly reading for June 24th to June 30th. It's the last week of June. So if that's what you're here for, please stay tuned. I like to touch back on the previous week's reading, and in that reading, Whitehawk said it would be a week of bliss and drought. I didn't hear from any of you. You know, leave a little comment. Yay, this was a good, it corresponded with my week. It didn't correspond with my week. It's okay. Like for instance, I believe that last week's reading is going to be more apropos where I am for this week, because weather-wise, we're going through a heat wave, and I did mean to Google what 36 degrees Celsius and 40 degrees Celsius is in Fahrenheit for my friends in the United States of America. I didn't take time to do that, so I apologize. That's where we're at. It's really hot here. So that's drought-like conditions. So he told us to get by water, but whether drinking it, get it into you, or sit around in it, that will definitely be what I'll be doing this week, because it is really, really hot. And what I wanted to mention about that is that, you know, when I give readings, it's not an exact science. And what I mean by that is sometimes it could have been the previous week there was a drought, and sometimes it's the forthcoming week, not the actual week that we speak of, but the forthcoming week that's going to be a drought. So that's my take on last week's weekly reading for me. Now for you, it may have been apropos, so you can just sort of, did I say that already? Anyways, about, just put in the comments saying, yeah, this was a great weekly reading for us, it corresponded, or saying no. And when he says drought, it doesn't just necessarily relate to the weather, but it can relate to what's going on in your life, right? Is your body dehydrated? Because that would be a drought in the body. When a drought occurs, there's stagnation, there's lethargy, there's not much growth, right? Think about it, when you're in a drought, I mean, just think of those poor geckos and stuff in the desert, right? I mean, how do they survive? I mean, what could you possibly do in a drought? What is the growth? So take those all into considerations, because when he talks, it is metaphorical. It is literal, but it is also metaphorical. So there's some more food for thought for you. All right, so let's go get Whitehawk and see what he'll have to say, interestingly enough, for our week ahead of the last week of June. Yes, he says, here we are. The last week of dear June, he says. And when he comes to me, we're riding on horseback, as we often are. He's on his beautiful white horse, and I'm on my cognac-colored one. And we are in desert-like conditions. And if we look ahead, there's this big, bright, you know, yellow sun on the horizon that meets with the sand. So, you know, when you're looking on the horizon, there's the sand, and then, you know, the sun's like right there, right? It would look like the sun, looks like the sun and the earth meet, right? And he says, indeed. Although, he says, I have told you of drought-like conditions, he says, the likelihood of it continuing, he says, is poor to, he says, the likelihood of it occurring is poor to likely happening, he says. So for those of you, such as you, Tracy, who have been lucky enough to not to have experienced a drought, he says, indeed it is on its way. I had mentioned, he says, in a previous reading that there will be a drought for the next 10 years, he says, none the like that we have ever seen. Once again, I do reiterate that there is not to be any fear, he says, regarding that. We will get through it, but there are some things that need to be unearthed, he says, via the drought. And henceforth, that is why we are headed into a drought. So look forward, my friends, for on the horizon there is indeed sun, and lots of it, he says. And to take note, when there is lots of sun, he says, there is lots of exposure to light. And when there is lots of exposure to light, he says, there is a lot of headaches. There is not only a lot of headaches, he says, there is a lot of consciousness to be lost, he says. Now, when I say consciousness to be lost, he says, I mean, sometimes we lose our days. Yes, he says, very much like hallucinations. He says, not, he says, yes, sometimes we lose our days. Sometimes through a drought and not staying hydrated, he says, we're not quite as aware as we could be in the world. So please do keep that in mind, he says, as we do come upon this drought that is coming. And I just took note that JC, or Jesus, is here, he's around. And so as we are riding and JC arrives, he actually does arrive into the reading. He's walking, and JC and I dismount our horses to meet him. And he's in his sandals, I guess you call them Jesus sandals, and he has his white robe on. And there's like like the crisscross effect going on the road, like with a rope or with leather. And he says, yes, indeed, that is my fashion that I am wearing today, Tracy. Good reporting. And so when he comes upon us, he greets us and meets us, and he shakes Whitehawk's hand, and he says, hello, my friend, it has been a while since I have seen you, it is good to see you. And then he comes to me, and he shakes my hand, and then he, like a father would do to a child, he rubs their head, He says, hello, child, it is so good to see you as well. And he gives me a big hug. He says, and he turns to you guys, the viewers, and he says, yes, my friends, indeed we are headed into a drought, but once again, as Whitehawk has said, there is nothing to be worried of. He says, we will move forward through it, we will get through it, we will evolve through it. He says, it will bring us to a heightened consciousness and to a new place, he says, on this planet. And when it does so, he says, my friends, people of the earth, he says, my children, he says, you will be better off for it, he says, for you will have learned the tricks of the trade. And not only will you have learned the tricks of the trade, he says, you have raised yourself to a new level, to a new vibration, to a new consciousness, he says. And through doing so, you will be a happier people, he says, my friends. And he blows you a kiss. So do not be afraid. We walk with you every minute, every mile, every footstep, he says. And he's walking through the sound, and it reminds me of that poem, Footsteps in the Sand, is that what it's called? I can't remember exactly. Where there's only one set of footsteps, and there's two people, and the good Lord says, right, that is where I carried you. So that's not Jesus saying that, that's me, Tracy. given you some information. He says, yes, it is good information. And so you see Jesus walking in the sand, and so we're walking behind him and following him as he walks through this time of drought. And so he stops and he turns, and he looks to us. Again, it's like he's looking to the viewers because we're following him now, right? We're following him through this drought. And he turns to us, he says, "Come, my friends, this is an unbelievable experience in time." He says, to be alive. He says, to experience that which we're about to go through. God bless my children of the earth. He says, we are here for you. God bless. And off you go, following him. Thank you. So that is our weekly reading for the last week of June. So again, it seems like we're headed into a drought, that which will, I guess, uncover things. And I guess my example I can give to you is, so that last year in this city, we went through a crazy drought as well. In fact, I wonder if the farmers have actually recovered from that. And when I was down at one of my favorite rivers, I couldn't believe when I went down that the water had receded so much, and how far I could actually walk from off the beach. Like almost, it felt like almost to the middle of the river. It really did. And then I couldn't believe that it had like uncovered things people threw in the lake, which is just crazy. Don't throw things in the lake. People don't, because like there was this 4 tires piled on top of each other, you know, and I thought, well, isn't this interesting? Because if this had never occurred, then I wouldn't be seeing a lot of the things that marine life can uncover, right, because of the drought. So I guess that's the way you can kind of look at what Tracy and Whitehawk are saying, how it's going to uncover things and bring forth newness through a drought. So that's my 2 cents. So our next reading is the topic of the week. Look for that Wednesday, Thursday. And I've spoken to Whitehawk about this, so he wants to do a Body Wisdom Part 3. So it looks like we're doing a series on body wisdom. So look for that Wednesday, Thursday. Now, it is the summer. The kids are home, so please be easy with me. You know, I'm going to do my best for Mondays to drop the weekly reading, and Wednesday, Thursday for the topic of the week. They might be late. I apologize for that. Go to my Twitter account, Roy at Tracy Roy, and or at Roy Tracy Roy. Kind of think of James, think of Bond, James Bond, Roy Tracy Roy. But it's also on my YouTube account. There's a little bird, you know, the little bird. It'll take you there. So be easy with me on that is all I'm saying. Okay, so thanks for joining me here today. We'll see you next time. Subscribe, it's free. Like, comment, be kind, keep it clean. And to like and comment, you do have to join YouTube, but it's as easy as Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest and all those. Share, and I'll see you here for our next section. God bless. Thanks for being here. I'm Tracy Roy for a Channeler's Channel.